see. You ready? All right, I'd like to call a regular meeting of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioner. Today's Tuesday, September 24th, 2024. All right, all rise for the pledge.
Oh, yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So Thomas is first. Okay. All right. Next agenda item is public comments on the agenda items. Do we have any board discussion on the agenda items? No? All right. Seeing there are no public comments on the agenda items, we're going to move to the review and approval of the agenda.
My name didn't come up.
We have a motion.
Come up.
Hmm?
We have a motion. Okay. All right, we have a...
Mr. Chair, I made a motion, move that the agenda be accepted.
All right, we have Commissioner Jackson has approved the agenda. Can I second? I second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next agenda item is the review and approval of the board meeting minutes from August 27th, 2024. Okay. All right, do we have any board discussion?
No.
Let me open this up too.
Who types the minutes?
We have a outside consultant that does it. Yeah.
Okay, just may want to correct my name spelling.
Okay, sure. I apologize for that.
That's good.
We will definitely get that done for
Here's
sure.
your last name.
Michelle has one L and get rid of the I in the Boyer.
Oh, okay.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Woods to approve the board minute meetings from the August 27th, 2024 board meeting. We are going to make an amendment to make a note to change,
Correct the spelling.
correct the spelling of Mr. Bruyere. All right, and we have a motion by Rodney Woods and a second by Commissioner Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
The press to vote on this thing.
And now we're going to move into.
I'm sorry. I'll activate the vote the next one. I
Okay, well, that's
apologize.
fine.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's
I was.
okay. I was just wondering.
I just said unanimous because I didn't hear a dissent.
Fine.
It's a new system, and we're all getting
Yeah.
we're getting used to it.
Adjusted.
Same. I am too.
Adjusted, yeah.
I am too.
All right. Next agenda item is the executive director report. Mr. Jackson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Hope everyone is doing well. I'll be going through the Executive Director's report today, first starting with the low rent report. As of the end of the month of August, we had 46 units leased at our boutique property, overall 70-mod units between our boutique property, our Hanville property, and our DeSalmans property. We collected a total of $11,842.47 in rent, and we mailed out 38 letters for the month of August 2024, 8 for one-bedroom units, 10 for two-bedroom units, 10 for three-bedroom units, and we had a total number of 47 work orders for the month of August that were completed by our maintenance department. 40 of those work orders were Inspire-related, and 7 of those work orders were regular work orders. We have also, as a part of the report, included our Inspire inspection documentation in terms of the actual report from the inspector, as well as a spreadsheet highlighting the 40 deficiencies and when those deficiencies were mitigated. And next in your packet, you have the HCVP General Activity Report. We currently have 12 poured out searching for housing between St. John, Hattiesburg, Denham Springs, Ouachita, Harris County, Rockpo, Kenner, Hano, Jefferson Parish, and Texas. And we have currently 5 port outs leased up. 2 at St. John, 1 in Kenner, 1 in Ouachita, and 1 in Texas. We currently have 3 port-ins leased up that we're billing for, 13. That'd be Kenner, 3, 1 Hano, 1 Thibodaux, 1 Harris County, 3 St. John, 1 Denver, 1 City of Fernandina, Florida, 1 Texas, and 1 Lafourche Parish. And we have 4 port-ins that are currently searching for housing. Effective August 31st, we had 2 EOPs, and we've added some items to the HCV report, specifically the payments, the income, searcher and landlord statistics, and voucher statistics. We did add that. Those are new sections since the last meeting. So for HCVP payments, as of August 31st, we received $263,673.03. Of that, $256,882 were HAP or ERP payments, $6,262 was outgoing, and $529, HAP payments that we let out as of August 31st, $529.03 in administrative fees. HCV income, as of August 31st, is $290,682.72. Of that, $266,663 was income from HAP, and $6,886.72 was incoming portable payments, and $17,133 is administrative income. We currently are processing eligibility for 10 current waitlist participants, and we have 15 voucher holders that are in-house searching. We have 3 new admission leased up from the waiting list, and we have, over the month of August, 5 new landlords in the program. And I know that was a question that was asked at our last meeting about month to month, how many new landlords we have in the program. And currently we have 246 vouchers leased up and 26 voucher holders that are searching. All right. I'm sorry.
No, that, question, backing up to that Inspire and inspection.
Yes, sir.
Did I read that report right for all the, I'll say deficiencies that they found, they've been corrected?
Yes, so of the 40, 39 are complete. There's 1 still in process, but because of a solicitation, we had to go through the procurement process, and that has been
That
awarded.
might have been that stairwell one?
No, that's actually the fence. Yeah, the stairwell was mitigated. Maintenance installed a plate over the gap.
Oh, okay. All right. Good.
Yes, sir.
Got it correct.
Yes, sir. And we uploaded everything to Inspire as evidence of mitigation. So we have not, I have that as a part of the report as well, because I have a couple of items that I wanted to speak with the commissioners about this evening. First being Hurricane Francine update. We do hope that everyone in our parish and the surrounding communities fared well after Francine, which made landfall on Wednesday, September the 11th. In preparation for the possible impact from the storm, our maintenance team, comprised of Chris Miles and Charles Taylor, began flyering the property on Monday, September 9th to provide tips for preparation and updates on our operational status. We also updated our website with daily advisories and operational notices before and after the storm. HUD did advise on Monday evening, the 9th, to begin providing residents with advisors, but thankfully we had already begun executing that process. Also, beginning on September the 9th, Monday, September the 9th, our maintenance team cleared any visible debris at the 3 properties. We secured portions of one of our boarded up properties. We worked to clear drains of debris at the Booty Estates property. We successfully got Waste Management to clear all of our dumpsters, and we maintained a state of readiness before, during, and after the event. The main office was closed for regular business on the day of the storm, September 11th, and the day after the storm passed on September the 12th. However, the maintenance team and I and Yolanda were active in working to assess and notify residents as needed post-storm. During our site surveys on Thursday, September the 12th, when the maintenance team and I went out, we surveyed minimal damage to the property with a few loose siding panels affecting 6 units and a few vent caps blown off roof vent pipes affecting 4 units. Our most significant impact was the loss of power for a day and a half to one part of the Booty property due to a tree-down power line. Power was restored early Friday morning after the Wednesday landfall. And while that portion of the property was out of power, Yolanda sorted out the contact information for residents on that side of the property, and I spoke to them in person and on the phone to provide them with updates, and we maintain constant communication with our energy rep. So I want to thank the board for offering any assistance that they could provide in advance of the storm and for receiving and responding to regular updates. To Chris Miles and Charles Taylor for their hard work and their dedication in ensuring that the properties were as ready as they could be. To Yolanda for establishing points of contact for the information that she got to us regarding the residents' contacts. And we did establish points of contact with our EOC and our area energy rep prior to the storm, and I want to thank Parish President Jewell, Jim Polk with the EOC, and the area energy rep Ira Fields for their support before and after the weather event, as well as our entire parish emergency response team. And as an after-action report, I've noted a couple of things that we need to shore up between now and God forbid, whenever we have to deal with another weather event. We're currently working to finalize the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Disaster Preparedness Plan. Officially, our agency does not have a board-approved disaster preparedness plan. And part of that plan creation will focus on our interagency collaboration with the St. Charles Parish Government EOC and other parish agencies for emergency preparedness and readiness, and I do hope to get that to you for your consideration no later than January of 2025. Procuring, and the next one is procuring a mass texting, mass emailing notification system. And while we have phone numbers for all of our residents, it wasn't until very recently that our low-rent and HCV teams began to request email information and regular cell phone number updates during resident recertification. And that's now a focus of ours, as reliable communication with voucher holders in advance of the storm was limited to our website, since they did not receive the flyer that residents at Booty Estates received. So text and email alerts will greatly improve our ability to communicate during our normal day-to-day operations and in times where we need to keep our families up to date in preparation for weather events. And again, we're thankful that the impact to our area was not on the scale of an Ida, and that our systems, priorities, and families, for the most part, exhibited strength and resilience through the event. And we do pray for those who are currently in the projected path of what is now Tropical Storm Helene. The next update is an Inspire update. Again, in your board packet, you have a copy of the preliminary report from HUD on the Inspire property assessment. As mentioned previously, we projected a score of 77, which is a passing score, according to HUD's scoring assessment tool. And that score was affirmed by the Inspire team, and HUD's review has been completed, and we're currently waiting for the final score. For 2023, our physical assessment subsystem, or PASS score, was a 13. The PASS score is used to determine our overall public housing assessment system, or FOSS score. If we use the PASS scoring formula by taking the preliminary Inspire score and divide that by a maximum of 40 percentage points that PASS is of the overall FOSS score that we use to determine the PASS score, we could see an improvement from a 13 to a 30.8. Now, I want to couch this as preliminary, but we will see an improvement in that FOSS area, which will hopefully increase our overall FOSS score. So for the 2023, or whenever the last assessment was held, we had a 13. Hopefully we'll be getting a 30.8 this go-around if we're basing the 77 on the formula that HUD provides for that scoring. We did upload evidence of mitigation for all 40 deficiencies and should have the last work completed on the fencing deficiency, like I said, this week. A process which required price solicitations, but I do want to thank the board, Yolanda, Chris, and Beverly for the work that was done since last year to address longstanding physical property issues, and the prep work that was done to get ready for this inspection. And lastly, on this item, Commissioner DeBroyer, you did request an update on our master maintenance work order spreadsheet, and I'll have that update sent to every commissioner no later than this Friday. The next item is a conversion update. I wanted to provide an update to the commissioners on the pending streamlined voluntary conversion, or SVC, application. St. Charles Parish Housing Authority had a conference call with national and field office HUD reps, as well as our developer partner Standard Enterprises, to discuss our pending SCVC application. During the call, HUD representatives notified us that all SVC applications around the country have been put on pause due to a court decision rendered in Jefferson Parish against HUD, which will prevent housing authorities with less than 250 units from proceeding with their SVC applications. As an alternative, HUD has indicated that agencies who have been affected by this decision can pivot to what's called a RAD Section 18 blend conversion alternative. From our research, the most significant difference between the RAD Section 18 blend versus a streamlined voluntary conversion is that the RAD Section 18 blend, while a conversion, has the housing authority retain ownership of the property, and it seems that tax credits are no longer allowed to be used in the financing model for construction or rehab under a RAD Section 18 conversion model. A RAD Section 18 blend was created with the goal to preserve and recapitalize public housing assets and provide robust resident rights. And the SVC is more an ownership partnership with a developer and property management entity where tax credits are able to be used to assist with the financing model. Tenant protection vouchers are still available with the RAD Section 18 blend, and there is an indication that the RAD Section 18 blend provides more rights, as I mentioned, to the public housing families, and would convert all qualified public housing units to long-term project-based or PBV Section 8 HAP units. There's an indication that units with long-term vacancies, though, would not qualify for the blend, but we would get further advisement from HUD, as we have had long-term mod unit statuses pending our SVC application process. According to HUD, the RAD Section 18 blend creates higher contract rents, supporting greater financing, provides robust resident rights, and includes a RAD one-for-one replacement, and allows for public housing funds to be used in project conversion, and is a conversion that allows for HUD to underwrite the entirety of the project to ensure project viability. According to HUD, any PHA with 250 or fewer public housing units under its ACC can, at the PHA's discretion, dispose of and convert up to 80% of the units. The blend is applied at the project level. In order to proceed with this model, however, we must restart our application process and resubmit a repositioning plan to HUD showing how we will remove all of our public housing units. We're also notified that as we have units currently on mod status due to the pending SVC application, that those units may have to come back online without an active conversion application. As the Housing Authority simply does not have the capital resources to address the modernization needs of the two currently shuttered develops, HUD requiring those units to come back online would be a significant issue for the agency. At the same time, according to our research and additional advisement from our developer partners, it might be beneficial to request a follow-up meeting with HUD to ask that they redetermine the viability of our application that was submitted for the streamlined voluntary conversion. Considering the time, due diligence, and benefits to the residents and the future viability of the authority, we could request a reconsideration of the decision made by HUD to abandon or pause the SVC application process. There is a concern that with the financially impactful absence of the tax credits, creating a larger rehab financing gap that one currently exists, reduced rents for RAD as compared to the streamlined voluntary conversion, and the new timeline that could potentially take 1.5 years to go through with pivoting to the RAD Section 18 blend. The pivot could be challenging for the agency to undertake and realize the benefits and purposes of converting the 3 St. Charles Parish Housing Authority properties. As this is not an action item, I would advise to the board that a special meeting be called sometime in the next few weeks to allow for further information to be provided, to allow the board to agree upon a sound plan and path forward that would guide future discussions with HUD, as HUD would like us to make a formal decision as to how we wish to proceed. While they did not give us a specific timeline by which to make that decision, we would like to keep the momentum going with them to realize progress in the process either way. And I know I just said a lot. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember the conversation we had, and I'm trying to see if we can keep the conversion portion moving forward, and I heard some of your comments where HUD could reconsider and whatever. So just off, because I read some through that stuff, and it's a lot of percentages and a number of different things. So my question is this. Remember I said that Jefferson Parish had the issue because residents didn't want that to happen.
Correct.
Our residents, as I'm understanding, all signed and agreed that we want this to happen.
Correct.
And one of the approaches I was hoping that we might take to present to HUD, even if we go back out and recertify with our residents that this is what they want, like, hey, look, we don't have the issue that Jefferson Parish had. Could that be a possible way for us to move forward?
And by issue, do you mean that Jefferson Parish had an issue with streamline conversion?
No, the residents themselves.
Well, that's what I'm asking. The residents themselves had an issue with the streamline conversion.
Yes, because they just kind of felt they were being left out the process, and they say they weren't. A number of things they weren't notified, and I don't remember all the details. Mm-hmm. But
was the decision from HUD based on Jefferson Parish?
The decision from HUD was based on the fact that the court agreed with the residents. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we're trying to present to HUD like, hey, our residents are not of the same understanding or in position as their residents were.
And to answer your question, no one on the call indicated that we couldn't. They didn't say we could, but they didn't indicate that we couldn't. They also did not indicate if the decision was related to an order or best practice or process that they would be implementing going forward. So while the court order could have been limited to Jefferson Parish, how they made the decision to allow it to impact everyone who had a pending application, considering the fact that we had no resident feedback that was negative or adverse. So, and Standard, who was on the call with us, got the same impression that it would probably be worth it to have that conversation with the conversion team at HUD to see if that could be a possibility going forward, if they could reconsider us. Now, I'm not too sure about carve-outs, and I don't know if this would be considered that, just for us, but considering the time, the effort, the planning, part of the conversion process was a part of our recovery agreement. I think, and we did get an indication from local HUD that recovery agreements can be amended if something changes regulatorily, so, but definitely from a positioning perspective, how I think Commissioner Jay explained that we put in our application years ago. Yes. And some folks that had already put their application in after us got approved before us. So definitely having the conversation with HUD and asking if it's possible.
And I'm going to say yes, I hope we can. The main people I'm thinking about are our residents. Yeah. I think as all of us are. And if we don't have to start this process over again, all the environmental reviews and all whatever we could ask, that I would hope it was.
It's the feasibility of it, because we have to, it's going to be more money spent on a process that we already started. So I think it'd be best if we can find a way to just continue on with the process that we're going down. Now, because I know we had a conversation, I was under the assumption that this was like a statewide or national level of a decision to not allow this to happen. But being that it's with our local, HUD office, I'm hoping that we can push through and keep moving forward what we already have.
So I think the position that HUD is taking is that because it was struck down by the court, it affects everybody.
But is that the case, though?
That's what we need to ask.
Okay.
Because it wasn't, and I will say, we did not have a preemptive conversation about the conference call So
Right.
we had no indication that this was even gonna be, an issue until we got on the call.
But if we talk about, the different scenarios, is this what is it, the RAD 18?
Yes,
So,
right, Section 18 plan.
RAD Section 18 plan, is that something that is our option, and we're gonna go through that option, or that's even still,
That is what HUD has indicated we could pivot to.
we can pivot to,
Right.
but if we pivot to that, and we don't have those units that are in mind, we can't use those units that are in mind, and that hurts the ability to get it done, because we have so many units in mind.
Yeah.
In there, yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, according to the regulation that I saw, vacancies, prolonged vacancies create an issue where a property or a unit could potentially not be eligible for conversion. So considering the state and status of Hanville, des Allemands, and some of the units at Boutique, it could be an issue. We don't know, but it could be.
And then the problem we end up having is we're gonna have to rehabilitate units with cap funds that that can't
It's
happen.
not enough.
It's not enough.
It's not enough. And honestly, the discussion regarding what we currently have on mod versus the pending application, that we absolutely do not have enough for that, because, I mean, that's why we've undertaken a conversion process, because,
From the get-go, yes.
yeah.
Just in a sense of moving forward, could we ask that question about our residents, but at the same time, I heard you suggest possibly a special meeting or something where we understand the details of
Yes.
the RAD 18 conversion, and just, because it might be where we have to go, not we want to, but at least have an understanding how that would affect us and finances and all that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, scheduling a special meeting or something to understand that other option might be something to do.
Absolutely, because the plan requires board approval. So I think any change in the plan should get an official position
Then
from the board.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely.
Again, I want to say, just the residents, we want this so bad. This curveball was thrown at us through the courts, and it's been a while, but know that we're working the best we can here with what we have. We feel from.
Yes. I have two more items
Yes,
just on
yes,
my
sir.
report, and thank you for those questions, Commissioners. The next item is financial reporting. As noted previously, we did not provide a monthly financial report for the month of August 2024, but we can confirm that we are projecting that we will have a first of a regular monthly financial report to the board no later than the November 2024 meeting. In conversations with 76 Strategies, it is their intention to have the unaudited submission submitted to HUD no later than the November deadline, and for that submission to coincide with the first of an ongoing monthly financial report for your review, discussion, and acceptance at board meetings from that point on.
Okay.
All right. The next, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Then would that be, because I'm like, okay, but then that would be, it would be completed through November. I guess I'm gonna say, are we gonna have completed financial records from whenever, and November will be the completed thing, won't we?
So,
we can close out the fiscal year of 24.
yes.
2024.
Yeah.
So I will request a report through November for October and every month preceding it
Okay,
for this fiscal year.
That's what we're
Because,
getting
well,
at.
and understand though that you will be getting that report a month after. So once the month closes, so like in December, you'll be getting November's financials.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I just stress the importance, and for myself personally, I'll say I'll use the word anxiety sometimes of finances and reporting. So I, for one, November, I'm going to be like, oh boy, that's what I'm going to be looking for.
Yes, sir.
I mean, we just coming out of a situation, so I'm hoping in November that's solved and then we're consistent after that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, the new city accountant has received all information they need to.
There's still a couple of outstanding
Some
items,
outstanding items, okay.
but I have asked that that information be provided no later than Friday. So we should be caught up no later than Friday so that they can begin preparation for those reports going back through the fiscal year up to October of '24.
So again,
No, yeah,
it is
yeah, I
that
understand.
important to that. So there is an in-house, whatever you guys have in-house, there is an in-house communication of financial information between the authority and the board. However you all decide to communicate, but that does exist.
That's, if not number one, 1B
Okay.
for list of priorities.
Okay.
And not only from the financial reporting aspect, but I'm going to talk about the budget briefly next. From the ability to understand our clear financial picture, what revenues we have coming in, what revenues we haven't drawn down, and the like. So
Okay.
definitely, it's going to be all encompassing.
Yes, sir.
No, thank you. No, and thank you for impressing
Yeah,
upon me. You know, in all of our conversations, I think since the first time I met you or had a conversation with you about the importance to have accurate and timely financial information. So
Yeah.
we are working diligently toward getting that done.
Okay. Absolutely.
So the next and final part of my report is a budget primer. And tonight, we're going to be presenting to the board a budget for the new fiscal year starting on October 1st, 2024, which will go through September 30th, 2025. The budget is sound, it is fiscally prudent, and it projects revenues and expenses based on past financial data, trends, and revenue outlooks for the authority. We worked with 76 strategies to formulate this budget, and we thank them for their assistance on this, considering the point at which they came into supporting the agency as our fee accountant. While the budget currently projects a deficit based on projected revenues and expenses, we also project that we currently have ample reserves to cover a deficit when and if it is realized through the fiscal year. We do anticipate a growth in our property occupancy, and we are hopeful that with the new projection of not experiencing a shortfall on our HAP side, we still are working with the shortfall prevention team on that, by the way, that the issuance of new vouchers through this upcoming fiscal year will help move our bottom line more into the black, which would lessen the need for the use of our reserves. As to the reserves, we currently have approximately $1.1 million available to be drawn down from HUD, which previously had not been vouchered for. We have directed staff to complete the draw process and additional draws from the Capital Fund program no later than the middle of October. Since August 13th, we have drawn down $311,000 against eligible expenses. Combining the vouchering of available funding, the updated financial reports beginning in November, the procurement of a day-to-day financial management system, the addition of a fiscally focused finance director, and the procurement of long-standing business relationships with our vendors, getting those in check, it will allow us and the board and the agency to understand the health of our finances through the fiscal year. It is our goal to use this budget to be the baseline for future budgets as we go throughout this fiscal year, as well as our annual budget projections going forward. And with that, that ends my executive director's report. Does anyone have any additional questions regarding the report?
So the next agenda items are, we have 5 board resolutions that we'll be looking for approval this evening.
He usually reads the memo on the actual resolution.
All right, the first resolution is Resolution 24-08-27-01. This one resolution was deferred to today, or referred from August 27, 2024. This resolution is approving and adopting a resolution for the second amendment of Circular Consultant LLC's contract change order number 1 with the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. The purpose of this memorandum is to provide an overview of the proposed resolution providing for a second amendment of the Circular Consulting LLC contract. Change order number 1, this item was deferred from the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board meeting that took place on August 27th of 2024. The agency is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. The authority and its Board of Commissioners entered into a contract with Circular Consulting on August 11, 2023, for a 1-year contract to provide support for tasks as specified in the agreement in order to assist St. Charles Parish Housing Authority with addressing areas of concerns indicated by HUD, CMAP, and FOS, and monitoring reviews for a cost not to exceed $75,000. These tasks were all encompassing in nature, touching every area of the agency to address items in the corrective action plan and recovery plan as prescribed by HUD. Due to the nature of the corrective action task and the length of time needed to adequately address the work task, St. Charles Parish directed Circular to complete work that exceeded their initial contract cap and time period. Circular's contract was extended via amendment number 1 for convenience and time on August 2nd, 2024 to end on February 11, 2025. As increasing the contract cap requires board approval, we are requesting to increase the board to cover. We're requesting an increase from the board to cover already expensed and invoice costs and an additional $107,988.50 and future projected expenses per revised work plan that is in line with the original scope of work. $9,800 to bring the authority contract cap from $75,000 to $192,788.50. Action required. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners required to increase the contract cap with Circular Consulting to allow for a final work plan in line with the scope of work of the original contract. Recommendation. Staff recommends board approval and adoption of the proposed resolution provided for the second amendment of the Circular Consulting LLC's contract change order number 1. Resolution 24-08-27-01, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting resolution for the second amendment of the Circular Consulting LLC's contract change order number 1. Oh, any commissioner have any question about the resolution? Mr. Woods?
Yes. Mr. Jackson,
Yes, sir.
what has changed in the resolution from what's presented last month and what we're looking at now?
So, thank you for asking that question. I was actually going to ask if I could speak for a moment, but we were on the same page. So last board meeting, we requested an increase of $22,850 in alignment with the revised scope to close out that contract. This go round, we worked with Circular to reduce that to $9,800. We cut out a part of the proposal, the proposed scope. We cut out the assistance in supplying the financials to 76 Strategies. That was projected to be a $10,000 expense, and there was a couple of other items that we cut out as well, but that was the most significant in working with Yolanda to determine if that service was still needed. So we worked to determine that wasn't still needed. Like I said, we've got a lot caught up, and we still have a couple of more things that we have to get in through the end of the week. But that was the biggest portion of the 22 that is now the 9. And the 9 is focused squarely on a couple of areas as it relates to training and technical assistance, as well as the recovery agreement that I believe Circular was heavily involved in crafting with HUD, as well as making sure that our CMAP process is straight through the November 30th deadline that we have with HUD. I will say, and again, just to provide as much clarity as possible, work was authorized and directed from the Housing Authority to be done, which did increase the contract cap beyond the cap. And this action is to address that increase, to make sure that it is formal and authorized by the board, as well as to highlight those final items that we have an intention, not necessarily an actual, we may not work with them on the items. This is it as needed. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it will take the hours that have been quoted in this proposed scope change.
I know when we got started with Circular, it was to update policies and get us current with stuff like that. Moving forward, why do we still need them? Is it because we don't have the manpower and or the expertise? At this point, why do we need a consultant to continue us moving forward?
As a best practice, housing authorities and public agencies in general do hire consulting firms to meet a need that is specialized in nature. And you know very well, we have a very capable staff. There is a benefit, however, with having a consulting firm that has that we already have a relationship with. Let's keep that in mind. That is why we did the convenience for time increase, just to make sure we didn't lose that relationship, which would have caused us to have to kind of start the process all over again and making sure that we did have a consulting firm. But really, it's for the specialized nature of what we do and making sure that, I'm going to give an update later in the meeting on the recovery plan. From everything that I've gathered, Circular played a very large part in getting that plan drafted, which falls in line with some of the items that we still have outstanding, including the CMAP and the HCV program performance, as well as the recovery plan agreement in and of itself, as well as training, like I think I mentioned to the board, making sure that not only do we have a policy and a process, but that the staff knows what to do with that policy and that process. I think this helps us get to a point to where we can proceed post ending or the end of this current agreement.
Okay. In the work plan, and I think I might have asked this question, but my head still is not clear. And I see there's contract administration and oversight under each operational budget compliance. Explain that to me again. Are they oversighting the contract we're signing with them, or something else that we're doing?
So that relates directly to their overhead expenses. So the consultant has a principal. They have differing layers of supervision and administration. Part of that is the person who would prepare the invoices, because that wouldn't come because of their checks and balances from that person who is the principal. So part of that is their overhead fees, as well as any contract related items that the people who are actually providing the descriptive services will not provide.
Okay. I'll tell you where I am exactly on
Yes,
this.
sir. Mm-hmm.
I'm really not. I know we got to pay the bills that we need to pay. I'm not really there. What we've expensed already and what we have, which I know it's paid, whatever. So it's just on paper saying yes, we approve it. So
Yes,
I get all of that. And even what I'm calling the additional, I'm having trouble with that. But I'm honestly, it's just right now. It just come to me that this is where I'm going to go with this. I'm going to support this, but just on the trust that I have in you and what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. And what this board, where we're trying to get to, just off the top of my head, consultants and spending money, I'm having issues with that, particularly we're over and all of that. But just to move forward, just the trust I'm putting and having in you, that I think I'm going to support this. I thought I wasn't going to until just now.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate that. And again, any action taken would be at the direction of the authority. So we will be having a conversation about how that will look and a clear understanding on the consultant side of just because we, want to meet doesn't necessarily mean we have to meet in person. We can meet over Zoom, which will preclude travel and all of that. So it's just making sure that our direction is clear, and that will definitely be a benefit to this process.
And I'll just conclude with this. I think I am going to support it. That as you're moving forward, not just a day by day, every minute what's going on, but just keep us apprised as to here's what we're absorbing out of that $9,000 or whatever it is, and how we're moving forward, just so there's an understanding kind of where the funds are going with that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And my question is, first of all, this goes to what date?
The 25th
Yeah.
February?
So
No, I'm sorry. As far as what they've expended already, up until when?
So this is through, I started in July. July was when we had our planning hearing.
I saw we paid them a check in August.
For July.
For July.
Yes.
So, and I know you said at the August meeting that you had not utilized their services.
Correct.
In August. So, but we're still paying some overhead fees?
No.
No. So zero.
Yeah, so we got we've for the life of the contract, from what I see, have received a monthly report from them in writing. The monthly report for the month of August indicated that we did not direct them to do any work on behalf of the authority, which means they had nothing to invoice us for.
So that's zero.
So and I will say this, even in the formulation of the revised scope, they did not charge us for that.
Okay.
Because that was not work related specifically to the scope or the task that we had agreed upon in the original contract.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And again, I just, because I understand the importance of this, I will say we have communicated, I'm thinking and hoping effectively with Circular to have them understand that we have a cap. It is hard, and anything beyond that, we will not proceed with instructing you to do a thing until we have conversations with our board and they determine how we proceed, because ultimately it is your decision, and that is why I want to make sure that this is cleaned up the right way.
Thank you.
What do you think about, so past the February deadline, you think we'll be okay with running without a consultant, or we still need to keep them on some kind of retainer basis?
That would be, I think, at the pleasure of the board. Upon, my advisement, again, I would communicate, hey, I think we have an area where they may be able to assist or align us with. I will say, and I'm not giving this as an advisement officially, but if we do ultimately pivot to, and I don't know the level of which the Circular was involved with the initial conversion application, but we have a developer partner that we need to make sure remains a developer partner if we, however we proceed. But representing the authority necessarily from a expertise or a legal perspective, that may require a consultant, that may require some on-call legal services as it relates to housing, affordable housing law. So it may not be Circular, but it may be someone else. Mm-hmm. But we definitely, just making sure that all of our, they call it the lowercase I's are dotted and T's are crossed, but some people forget about the lowercase j's, that the lowercase j's are dotted as well, that we have someone who's representing us in our interests.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So the possibility does exist that we may need to work with Circular or another consultant going forward.
Right, next question is, we do a budget, so that will be included in the budget so we can monitor where we're at with expenses.
Absolutely.
And just kind of, because I think that would definitely help, just for us to understand, like, hey, we're spending too much money on a consultant, or the consultant may be doing too much, we got to roll it back because we're exceeding that budget that we have. And we just need to monitor that and make sure, because I do agree that it will be needed, especially with dealing with outside parties helping us with development, but it would be good to, actually keep an eye on the cost.
To be able to track it, yeah.
So we don't end up in, a situation where we have
Like
to.
this.
Right, exactly.
Yes. Motion.
All right.
Someone move?
Mr. Well,
Want
that's
to read
already
this?
moved.
Yeah, once we approve it.
After you approve, okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Woods, approving the resolution, that was presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
We have a second by Commissioner Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Resolution 24-08-27-01, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution for the second amendment of the Circular Consulting LLC's contract change order number 1. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certify that by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established and pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority selected Circular Consultant LLC through a request for proposal, and whereas a contract was entered into between the authority and Circular Consultant August 11, 2023, for a contract cap not to exceed $75,000 to provide administrative support to the authority in response to the HUD CMAP files and monitoring review. Whereas Circular Consultant satisfactorily completed the majority of the scope of the work to support the authority during the initial term of the contract, and whereas due to the nature of the work that was completed and still needs to be completed, the authority via Amendment 1 of the original contract with Circular Consultant extended the contract for a 6-month period to now and end of February 11, 2025, on August 2nd, 2024, and whereas the volume of work due to the volume of the work and at the direction of the authority, Circular Consultant exceeded its originally agreed upon contract cap of not to exceed $75,000, and whereas the authority wishes to extend the cap to $192,788.50. $107,988.50, of which was already expensed and invoice costs beyond the current contract cap per the original professional service scope, and $9,800 is for the future projected expense. Skipping around. Is for the future projected expense as needed per the revised work plan in line with the scope of the work of the original professional service contract, and whereas the authority's Board of Commissioners give the Executive Director the authority to execute any related agreement to effectuate this resolution, now therefore be it resolved that this proposed resolution providing for the second amendment of the Circular Consultant LLC contract change order number 1, accepting the revised work plan, which is in line with the original scope of work and increasing the contract cap to $192,788.50, is hereby approved and adopted for implementation.
Amen.
All right, keep going. No, we already did that. Okay. All right.
That's the next resolution.
24.
Let's go past that.
Questions? No questions?
That's and I did record the vote already.
Okay.
That's the next one. That's the first one.
All right. Next agenda item is Resolution 24-09-24-01, adopting a resolution for approval of the fiscal year 2025 operation budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024. All right, the purpose of this memorandum is to provide an overview of the proposed resolution to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2025 operation budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024. Background: the authority is a housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. The authority must submit to HUD the HUD Form 52574 before the beginning of the fiscal year, certifying that the Board of Commissioners have reviewed and approved a public housing operation budget. Pursuant to the 24 CFR 990.315, the PHAs are required to prepare the operating budget and submit them for board review and approval. The board resolution must be kept on file and updated each PHA fiscal year for HUD's review. The board resolution ensures that all statutory and regulatory requirements have been met. The PHA has sufficient operating reserves to meet the working capital needs of its developments. The proposed budget expenditures are necessary in the efficient and economical operations of the housing for the purpose of serving low-income housing residents. That the budget indicates a source of funds adequate to cover all proposed expenditures. That the PHA will comply with the wage rate requirements under the 24 CFR 968.110 C and F. And that the PHA will comply with the requirements for access to records and audits under the 24 CFR 968.110I. Action required: adoption and approval of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required approval of the fiscal year 2025 operation budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024. Recommendation: staff recommends the board adoption and approval of the proposed resolution to approve the fiscal year 2025 operational budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024. Board discussion on this one?
I still don't really understand that number we talked about, but can you try it one more time?
Sure, yeah, and what everyone, Commissioner Woods is referring to, there's, in page, I believe it's one of four. After the actual resolution template, there's an indication that, there's a line item in other revenue, for $149,500, $149,500,300. While we have shifted to a new fee accountant, 76 since HSA was working with us on it, we have a theory, not a confirmation, but a theory, that this number was a placeholder that was used by HSA in preparing the previous year's budgets that they worked on. So this is not a real actual number as much as it is a placeholder. Now, the budget category in columns to the right of the highlighted column indicates the total expenses. It also indicates in the next pages what the actual, revenues in that page, what the expenses will be for each line item through the fiscal year that are projected. So the best answer that I could give is that that number was a placeholder. Because I don't believe anybody previously had approved a budget for
140
million. Yes.
Okay.
And again, this budget, it's not only the low rent, but it's also the HCV budget, based on trends, based on real numbers, and it's a projection. We project a deficit, doesn't necessarily mean that we will realize a deficit. Just to give you an example, we've included the proposed salary for the finance director in this budget. We will not have a finance director beginning October 1. So there will be a cost savings right there because we won't be using that salary. That's just an example of, but we have to include it because we are projecting for the fiscal
At
year.
least the position is already, I won't say authorized, but it's there.
Correct, correct.
Placeholder, it makes sense.
Yes,
Placeholder
there you
for
go.
that.
Yes,
The other
sir.
number.
Yes,
didn't.
I know. But, you know, we will, as I mentioned in my report, be as fiscally prudent as possible. We will make sure that our contracts and our current relationships with our vendors are getting the best value, which may mean that there will be, depending on the current state of that agreement or that relationship, competition through a procurement process.
Okay.
You know, so really and truly, we will make and take steps to make sure, to make sure every chance that we have to not have to use the reserves. But we do have the reserves if we need them because of the amount of money that we have not drawn from HUD, that we will draw.
Okay. I was able to follow and track. Just another quick question.
Yes, sir.
And as you go in operating budget, schedule of all positions and salaries, I see where there, some people are paid 100% out of one place or 50, whatever. We have systems in place for tracking that?
Yes, sir. So what we have recently implemented is, just to give you an example, we're utilizing a clock system that had no back end to it outside of the actual hours worked during any given week. We recently brought on ADP as a vendor. We transitioned from Paychex, who the clock in and clock out system did not talk to. Paychex was purely processing our payroll, and I believe we were being charged $230 pay period by Paychex. We are being charged $123 for processing by ADP, and we have an additional time management system called ClockShark, which feeds directly into ADP. That will allow us, when we're processing payroll, to allocate who works when and where, through what they call them departments in ADP, but really it's truly what fund they work through, either low rent or HCV. So that's why we were able to allocate the salaries on that spreadsheet.
And the positions, we've got maintenance supervisor and maintenance repairman. Are the names of the people in the position, are they in the right place?
Yes.
So Chris is a maintenance supervisor and Charles is a maintenance repairman?
Yes. That's correct, right?
I thought it was the opposite.
That's what I was thinking.
It's the opposite.
Charles is not the supervisor.
Right. Yeah.
Chris is the master.
Yeah. He's a super. Yeah.
So Chris is a supervisor. Okay.
Yeah.
That was the
And
opposite.
so then the position that, again, Charles, I hate to just use people's names or whatever because it's
that's fine.
positions, but so then, and, well, that
Yeah.
lost
Yeah.
me.
So because we have civil service employees, longevity is rewarded.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. That's
Yeah.
good. I guess my understanding just was I thought it was the opposite. I thought Charles was the supervisor and Chris was the repair.
I believe that was.
Charles being half and half, that's why he's not the supervisor.
Okay.
Partial maintenance and other half.
Inspections.
Inspector. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm seeing that because, again, the position Chris in is 100% paid and Charles is at 60/40, so I do see that split.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes good sense on that. All right.
And we allocated it that way because Charles works 3 days. Charles dedicates 2 days specifically to inspections,
Gotcha. Okay.
2 days out of the week.
Okay.
What's the I was looking for like a bottom line, like NOI, net operating income. It's, the income after all the expenses have been taken out. You'll see that anywhere?
Oh, that's we gotta do the math. I'm with you though. I know what you're saying.
So, if you look on, it's the page after the position breakdown. That is currently, empty on the debt service ratio, but this does include liabilities and receivables in the quick ratio. And, and Commissioner Woods, the projected MENAR is 21.8.
I would thank you, because I
Yes,
was
based on this budget.
one of my next questions. That's good when we can start anticipating where we're coming from.
More
man.
connected.
You said 28 point,
21.8,
21.8.
21.8. All right, thank you.
which would make us eligible for all 11 on the FA side,
Right.
the financial side.
Oh, here we go. Gotcha. There we go. Yes, thank you. Okay.
And I will make a note to the commissioners. It will be my goal to, going into the next fiscal year, to at least allow for 2 meetings in case there are questions that go beyond what we've been able to cover today
Okay.
and in the week since you've got the packet. Because sometimes we may need to defer it,
Yeah.
you know.
Gotcha. Okay.
Unfortunately, with the timeliness, making sure that we have this resolution to HUD,
Deadline.
Yeah. Okay.
you know, that played a lot of into why we're doing it. But it is our intention going forward to have this conversation beginning no later than
To
August.
have some type of budget process,
Yes.
we'll say.
That's
Yes.
fine. Yes, absolutely,
Where we
absolutely,
sit and discuss it. Okay.
absolutely.
All right, so we have a motion. All right.
No
All right, we have a motion on the resolution 2409-24-01. Motion by Commissioner Woods, second by Commissioner Jackson. All in favor?
All right.
All right, ayes have it. Resolution 24-09-24-01, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners adopting a resolution for the approval of the fiscal year 2025 operation budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certifies that by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the authority must submit to HUD the HUD Form 52574, certifying that the Board of Commissioners have reviewed and adopted the PHA's operating budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Whereas the authority's Board of Commissioners, by this resolution, approved the fiscal year 2025 operation budget for the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024. And whereas the resolution certifies that the Board of Commissioners agree with all HUD statutory requirements as listed on the HUD Form 52574, and by effects of this resolution authorize the chairperson of the Board of Commissioners to execute the HUD Form 52574 to ensure a timely and proper submission of the approval of the fiscal year 2025 operation budget. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this proposed resolution to approve the fiscal year 2025 operations budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024, and to allow for the signed submission of the HUD Form 52574 is hereby adopted and approved. Next agenda item is the Board Resolution 24-09-24-02, approving and adopting the resolution to update the low rent utility allowances beginning December 1st, 2024.
Yes, sir.
Need a bottle of water. The purpose of this memorandum is to provide an overview of the recommended approval and adoption of the new low rent utility allowance resulting from the Nelrod Company study for the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. The authority is a public housing agency established and pursuant to Louisiana's law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and a living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's missions, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. Every year, the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority has the NELROD company to review the utility allowances. The utility allowances is used to determine how much money each tenant pays for monthly rent. This analysis is based on several factors, including actual consumption data of the units from the utility companies, surveys of the local garbage haulers for the current rate consumption averages, and unit size factors from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. During this review, the St. Charles Parish Housing Agency must determine if new rates will change the utility allowance. The St. Charles Parish Housing Authority must update any bedroom size utility allowance to reflect the new utility rates. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required for the authority to update the low rent utility allowance on December 1st, 2024, and to approve the attached schedule for submission to HUD and using the calculation fiscal year 2025 low rent housing rent. Staff recommends board approval and adoption of the proposed resolution providing to update the low rent utility allowance on December 1st, 2024. Any board discussion? All right. Someone like the motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that resolution 2409-2402 is adopted as read. Is that what it?
Okay. Okay. Second by Mr.
Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Commissioner Woods. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay. Resolution 24-09-24-02. A resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution to update the low rent utility allowance on December 1st, 2024. The undersigned, being the duly elected secretary of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certified by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing authority established pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and suitable living environment free from discrimination, whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development mandates the authority to adhere to all regulatory and statutory requirements regarding its governance, and whereas the 24 CFR Section 982.517 requires St. Charles Parish Housing Authority to establish a utility allowance schedule for the low-rent housing program, and whereas the utility allowance must be reviewed annually to determine if there has been substantial change in utility rates or other charges of general applicability that will require an adjustment to the utility allowance schedule, and whereas the staff has reviewed the current utility allowance schedule for the low-rent program and have determined that the schedule needs to be adjusted, and whereas the 24 CFR 982.517 and Form HUD 52667 allowance for tenant furnished utilities and other services provided guidance and recommendation procedures for adjusting utility allowance. Now therefore be it resolved that the attached HCV utility allowance is hereby approved and adopted effective December 1st, 2024.
Okay.
All right. On to the next resolution, Resolution 24-09-24-03. Approving and adopting a resolution to update the HCV utility allowance beginning December 1st, 2024. The purpose of this memorandum is to provide an overview of the recommended approval and adoption of the new HCV utility allowances resulting from the NELROD Company study for the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority. The authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. Every year, the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority has the NELROD company to review the utility allowances. The utility allowance is used to determine how much money each tenant pays for monthly rent. The analysis is based on several factors, including actual consumption data of the units from the utility companies, survey of the local garbage haulers for their current rate consumption averages, and unit size factors from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. During this review, the St. Charles Parish Housing Agency must determine if new rates will change the utility allowances. St. Charles Parish Housing Authority must update any bedroom size utility allowance to reflect the new utility rates. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required for the authority to update the HCV utility allowance on December 1st, 2024, and to approve the attached schedule for submission to HUD and use in calculating the fiscal year 2025 HCV housing rent. Staff recommend board approval and adoption of the proposed resolution providing to update the HCV utility allowances on December 1st, 2024. Do we have any board discussion or motion? No. The Commissioner would motion that we approve Resolution 2409-24-03. Do we have a second?
I second it.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. Resolution 24-09-24-03, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution to update the new HCV utility allowance on December 1st, 2024. The undersigned, being the duly elected Secretary of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority, hereby certify that by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing authority established pursuant to Louisiana law, and whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and suitable living environment free from discrimination, and whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development mandates the authority to adhere to all regulatory and statutory requirements regarding its governance, and whereas the 24 CFR Section 982.17 requires the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority to establish a utility allowance schedule for the HCV housing program, and whereas the utility allowance must be reviewed annual to determine if there has been a substantial change in utility rates or other charges of general applicability that would require an adjustment to the utility allowance schedule, and whereas staff have reviewed the current utility allowance schedule for the HCV program and have determined that the schedule needs to be adjusted, and whereas 24 CFR 982.517 and Form HUD 52667 provides guidance and recommended procedures for adjusting utility allowances. And now, therefore, be it resolved, the attached HCV utility allowance is hereby approved and adopted effective December 1st, 2024. All right, our final resolution for this evening is Resolution 24-09-24-04, approving and adopting a resolution to adopt the 2025 HCV program payment standard. The purpose of this memorandum is to provide an overview of the proposed resolution to approve and adopt the 2025 HCV program payment standard. The authority is a public housing agency established pursuant to Louisiana law, whose mission is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and living environment free from discrimination. Committed to the authority's mission, the staff is continuously working to improve services, strengthen operations, and implement sound policy. HUD established fair market rents annually.
Whereas,
I lost my page. Of course.
look,
Hold on, let me go for this because this is on.
Yes, the next one. Yeah.
I know I stopped. Okay.
whereas HUD establishes fair market.
HUD establishes fair market rents annually, usually effective October 1st. Public housing authorities are required to set their payment standards for the Housing Choice Voucher Program between 90% and 110% of the fair market rent. in a tight and competitive rental market, it is beneficial for housing authorities to set them at a high level to provide adequate housing for families. Approval and adoption of this resolution by the Board of Commissioners is required to adopt the 2025 payment standard at 110% of the fair market value rent, or the fair market rent. Staff recommends board approval and adoption of the proposed resolution providing to adopt the 2025 payment standards at the 110% of the fair market rent effective December 1st, 2024. Have any board discussion or motion? Commissioner Jackson has motion to accept Resolution 24-09-24-04. We have a second by Commissioner Woods. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Resolution 24-09-24-04, a resolution of the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority Board of Commissioners approving and adopting a resolution to adopt the 2025 HCV program payment standard. The undersigned being duly elected Secretary of St. Charles Parish Housing Authority hereby certifies that by written consent the following resolution was duly adopted. Whereas the St. Charles Parish Housing Authority is a public housing authority established pursuant to Louisiana law, whereas the mission of the authority is to promote adequate and affordable housing, economic opportunity, and suitable living environment free from discrimination, whereas the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development mandates the authority to adhere to all regulatory and statutory requirements regarding its governance, whereas HUD establishes the fair market rents annually, and whereas public housing authorities are required to set their payment standards for Housing Choice Voucher Program between 90% and 110% of the fair market rents for their metropolitan area, whereas the authority wants to offer payments sufficiently high to provide adequate housing for families in the Housing Choice Voucher Program, program, and whereas the authority desires to set the payment standard at 110% of fair market. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the attached payment standard schedule set at 110% of the fair market rent is hereby approved and adopted effective December 1st, 2024. That's good. No. Oh, all right. Next on to that's the end of our resolutions this evening. Next agenda item is the corrective action plan.
We need to vote on that, right?
You did?
We
You
did.
did it right? Oh, so you were just reading it. I'm sorry.
Right, just the resolution.
You read it all over again, and that threw me back
threw me
in.
off.
Gotcha.
All right. Next agenda item is the correction action. My mind is all over. Corrective action plan update and recovery plan update.
No, thank you, and I want to thank all of the commissioners for the work that you do every month to make sure that as a housing authority we're able to transact business. So part of that is the whole process. So we really appreciate you all and the effort and energy that you expend.
Most reading I did in 2 months.
So, and I'll be brief. Commissioners, we will be submitting a timely quarterly report to HUD before the end of the week, per our recovery agreement. We have a number of items that we'll be addressing in this report as it relates to the deliverables that we're required to meet through the recovery agreement. We have one of those is the occupancy rate. We have a current occupancy rate at the Booty property of between 75% and 80%, depending on current move-outs. We actually, I think, have 6 pending move-ins between now and the end of the week, so that number could go up, could be flat, depending on the amount of move-outs. Per our agreement, we had a mandated 55% occupancy rate, so we have met that benchmark metric through the end of the fiscal year ending September the 30th. We also can attest to potentially meeting the metric of a pass score of at least 60 with our Inspire preliminary score of 77. The next metric requirement will be achieved when we submit the audited and unaudited financial statements by their deadlines of 9 months after the close of the fiscal year for the audited statements and 60 days after the close of the fiscal year for the unaudited financials, which 76 Strategies, as I mentioned earlier, has committed to assisting us with. And that is going into that is the next fiscal year. As it currently stands, we submitted the unaudited, but that was late, and we're in the process of working with the independent auditor. We got some information as it relates to their audit draft that we're reviewing and should be submitting the audited financials as soon as possible. But again, we had a draft, and we reviewed the draft, and we had some questions that we met with Mr. Estes and his team on. But going forward into the new fiscal year, we'll be able to meet that metric because we will submit timely, unaudited, and audited financial statements. 9 months for the audited and 60 days for the unaudited. For the final benchmark of the recovery agreement, that does rely on the conversion process. Local HUD has indicated that we're okay for the time being, considering the meeting that we had with them regarding the pivot to the RAD Section 18 blend. And we may have an opportunity to amend the agreement to reflect the current status of the conversion at a later date. There are clauses in the agreement that allow for mutually agreed upon amendments to the recovery agreement. So we will submit the report as it relates to occupancy rate, as it relates to the pass score as a part of the FOS score. I know I'm acronym, a lot of acronyms, and also to make sure that they understand that we are in the process of getting those audited and unaudited reports to submit it timely, and as it relates to the update that we have at the time of the submission of the report on the conversion process. And we will submit this quarterly report in advance of the September 29th, 2024 deadline. Do you have any questions?
Feels like we're right on track.
3 out of 4 ain't bad. And we haven't even gotten into the real meat of the agreement with the time. Yeah. And I do want to say a lot of that work was done by Yolanda, Chris, Beverly, Charles, and Cindy. So I really appreciate their work in advance of where we are now.
Thank you, Ms. Yolanda and staff.
All right, board, do we have any other matters we want to discuss?
Just something right quick. I know I talked about it, so I guess I'm officially asked. But in the PIC system, I know you, staff, and even our chairman can go in and put in information in there. But I remember asking about there is a read-only portion of that also, where a commissioner could go and just not change or input, but read. Could we look into that and see about adding a commissioner or whatever? Again, it's just a way of tracking where you can just go into the system and read what's in it. So I'd like to be in on that. I know that it exists, but I would rather coming from you approaching HUD than myself.
I can do that. And is there any other commissioners outside of Commissioner Woods that would like that access?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind.
Okay.
How are we doing with y'all got a program yet for just for the rent receivables and day-to-day?
So we met with Yardi. We met with PHA Web. We're trying to set up another demo with another company, but have not been able to do that. We've gotten a quote back from PHA Web. We have not gotten a quote back from Yardi. I believe we'll get that next week. So hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have at least an understanding of the proposals that exist. Again, our current software provider, MRI, does not have a financial module in their software offerings. So now, something that I was going to discuss a little later today, but I might as well mention now. It may preclude us from noticing Happy, or we may be in a position to notice Happy, because what it seems as if it's odd. Most software companies don't offer that are public housing focused don't offer standalone finance software. It's a part of their whole package. But Happy does not. So, depending on the quotes and the usability and the features and functions, we may have to end up noticing Happy of an out based on what we would be getting to the benefit of the agency from the other systems. But we haven't gotten that far yet. But we did indicate to them when we met with them that it was a concern that they didn't have a viable or they didn't have a financial part to, because there's a lot of congruency and parallels in having both because they affect each other. It's sometimes harder to do one without the other. So yeah. So yes, we're working on that. We did have 2 demos already, and we're going to be getting all those quotes.
All right, do we, next agenda item is public comments. Here, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
Hold on one second.
Motion made.
Yeah. You can move. Did you move on the?
Yeah, I thought I did, I'm sorry.
There you go.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Woods, second by Commissioner Jackson. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 7:41.
I added 2.